Next Curve.
Welcome, everyone, to this Next Curve reThink podcast episode where we break down the latest tech and industry insights and happenings into the insights that matter. And of course, this is the Silicon Futures series where we take a magnifying glass as well as a telescope to the world of semiconductors and AI and all that wonderful HPC stuff that we constantly talk about. And I'm Leonard Lee, executive analyst at Next Curve. In this Silicon Futures episode, we'll be talking about hot chips, which was probably one of the hottest events this month. And then we'll also touch on GlobalFoundries. So they had their tech summit this week. And, of course, we all know about the recent acquisition of MIPS by GlobalFoundries. So maybe we'll touch on some of the structural changes that are happening in the industry that Jim McGregor of Tirius Research would like to talk about. And of course, he's one of the hosts of this podcast. And of course, we have the scale across, not scale up, not scale out, scale across, Karl Freund of Cambrian-AI Research, LLC. Gentlemen, how's it going?
I'm ready for the weekend.
You
ready to go? Ready to go.
For this podcast to be over so we can decompress after a very dense month.
Busy week.
Oh, week, month,
year.
Yeah. Oh, crazy. But, hey, before we get started, please remember to like, share, react, and comment on this episode. Also subscribe here on YouTube and on Buzzsprout. Take us on your, on your jog, on your daily commute. Opinions and statements of my guests are their own and don't reflect mine or those of Next Curve. And hopefully you'll find this episode enlightening and fun. So let's get started with the big event of the month, which is Hot Chips 2025, which took place on the Stanford campus, right? And I think there were about 2,500 total attending this year, right?
About that, yeah.
Online.
That's about right.
Yeah, there were over 2,000 in attendance. That was a record.
Yeah. Incredible. And we saw everybody there seemingly in the AI universe, and even those that Karl doesn't feel like are participating enough in the AI universe, right? Jim, you and I, we sat next to three of them from a particular company that's often mistaken as a fruit company. So, yeah. What were your key takes? I mean, there was so much there. It's 3 days, people. First, day one is tutorials, right? And then the next 2 days are sessions that cut across a whole myriad of topics. And one of the things I always think is interesting, gentlemen, is how they prioritize things. And this year, for the tutorials, it was rack. And then this weird topic of AI kernel programming, right? And I think they squeezed security in there somewhere, right?
No, security was the next day, but yes.
Oh, it was the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways.
I think, I got on the plane and I was kind of disappointed. I was disappointed because what I like to hear about is, really fast GPUs and CPUs and stuff.
Yeah.
But then I kind of reflected on the importance of this event, and it was really about the data center, not about the GPU. Mm-hmm. It was really about rack scale and row scale and data center scale and scale across, which is really impinging on both memory and networking. And the key takeaways for me were there. Memory and networking, memory from lots of different folks, especially surprisingly, new HBM solutions and so forth from Marvell, new SRAM based solutions from Marvell. Really, Marvell SRAM, yeah. And Google's turned it up to 11. Oh my God, the that system is just ridiculously huge and fast. And it kind of makes NVL72 look puny. But at any rate, it was really about the networking. It was really about memory. It was really about cooling. And you're starting to see, UEC compliant networking cards. It was pretty exciting stuff. I mean, we could dive as deep as you want, but it was really a game changer.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. It was less about the GPUs, which have been the focus for the past couple of years, and more about everything else. It was about the network. It was about the infrastructure, the rack. It was about the memory. It was about the security. So, I mean, it really was everything that you have to build around it. I mean, the big guys, especially AMD and NVIDIA, did talk about, their architectures, the Blackwell, the RDNA, and the CDNA. But I guess the really important part was everything else. Matter of fact, even Meta kind of surprised me because they got up there and talked about a processor for actually a distributed processing solution for their Orion AR glasses, where they're actually breaking it up into actually 3 different chiplets, but you actually end up with 4 with the glasses. So you have one for each eye. So, and that in Evercore talked about having a very, very low power embedded processing solution that can actually use energy harvesting to run it pretty much forever. So, there were still, I think, some key takeaways. It just wasn't what we usually see. And even on the processor side, there was really only one big iron processor that was revealed there, and that was Clearwater Forest by Intel, talking about their next generation Xeon, presuming Xeon 7 processor with their efficiency cores. And I was actually really excited about that product because saw what they did with E-cores in Lunar Lake on the PC side, knowing a lot of that same technology went into these E-cores. It's going to be a very, very power efficient solution. So I was excited about that.
What do you think about, I suppose it's a rumor that Lee Boutin wants to introduce hyper-threading back into the mix?
No, he actually said that. He actually said that during their earnings call that he wanted to introduce that. I'm concerned about that because I don't want to see that impact their product strategy. And there's benefits and there's pros and cons for having hyperthreading. And Intel has had hyperthreading forever, went away from hyperthreading with the recent Xeon processors because now they have an efficiency core and a performance core. So they're not trying to do everything with the same core. It might be good, but I just hope it doesn't impact their roadmap in terms of time frame, because Intel right now, more than anything, can't afford any flips in their schedule.
Well, I was surprised that there isn't a contextualization of why they got rid of hyper-threading in the first place. But one of the shocking topics was confidential computing. And that discussion was framed around what that gentleman from Microsoft presented, right, where he was talking about how the cyber criminal economy is the fastest growing economy on the planet and is number 3 in terms of quote unquote GDP. If you can even call it GDP, because it's actually negative GDP, because it's a burden on all other, let's call it legitimate.
It's the theft economy. The third
largest economy.
Yeah.
Shocking.
Right. And so, obviously we know about Spectre meltdown, side channel vulnerabilities. There's a lot of measures to mitigate these things, but
I don't think it was just that. I mean, obviously hyperthreading introduced some of those potential threats and that was an issue. But even more so, you got to remember that the x86 has been under pressure from ARM, for lower power, more energy efficient computing. So Intel went to having solutions that had, specific solutions just for that single thread performance and solutions just for that efficiency, so that you're using the right solution at the right time. So, and that's kind of been a trend for Intel over the past, and not just in servers, but also in PCs, but making sure you do the right you use the right execution element for the right workload. So, that was really, I think, the impetus for going away from hyperthreading to this strategy, this multi-core strategy.
For me, networking was huge, right? Networking up and down the stack. It's not just about the GPU, it's also about memory and this whole theme of memory fabrics. So we heard fabric quite a bit in a lot of the presentations. These hybrid topologies to connect not only GPUs to GPUs, but different classes of memory or tiers of memory to different compute, whether it's the CPU or the GPU, right? So when we look at the frontier of how these systems need to evolve in order to scale out as well as scale up, and, dare I say, scale across, we're looking at much more complicated networking and interconnect. And a lot of this has to be optical. So we're also seeing that acceleration in the interest as well as the discussion around optical. And I think a lot of that is, Karl, as you and I discussed, probably a lot of that credit has to go to NVIDIA, which made that whole announcement earlier this year about moving to co-packaged optics, right? CPO.
Yeah.
So
We saw a lot of different approaches to applying optical, both all the way down to chiplet communications with optical, with an outboard, I guess you call offboard lasers, all the way down to a package, a substrate, which provides optical connectivity not to the periphery of the die, but to the center of the die. So that way the optical area can grow as the square, not as the linear size of the chip. That was from Light Matter. That was very interesting, and all the way to co-packaged optics from NVIDIA and elsewhere. You can tell the world is about to shift optical in the next 5 years, and it'll take that long. There's still issues with optical in terms of laser reliability and failure rates and serviceability, right? If you think about serviceability, well, if I've got an optical connector that's actually my substrate, if there's a failure, I throw it away. I can't go in and just replace a transceiver plug on the side. So the industry's still maturing in optical, but it's pretty exciting stuff. Low power, very high performance, and some people say it's not only the future, but it's a bright future with light.
And I'll be honest with you, I think that just the reliability issue, and nobody really brings that up. They usually talk about power and they talk about speed and everything else, but just the reliability issue of not having those physical transceivers, which are prone to fail, is going to be a huge transition optics. However, it was interesting, everyone was pretty much promoting optics from chip through the data center, while NVIDIA is a staunch proponent of using copper in the rack as long as possible.
As long as possible.
Yeah, and rightfully so. It's a cost advantage to using copper, but you have to. Eventually, just because copper, the distance keeps shrinking, the faster you try to run it, you have to even move the switch from top of rack to the middle of the rack to make sure that you have enough length to get across the rack. So, it's still going to run out of steam.
As it becomes more and more of a networking discussion, right? When we look at the evolution of these very large scale AI supercomputing systems and data centers, the conversation really becomes about networking. It's no longer about just the GPU or the accelerator, right? There is this really fast acceleration toward advanced concepts in networking. And so, one of the things that impressed me was how much this looks like telco networking, but being scaled down into something like a data center, or even at a rack scale, or even at a tray scale, right? So latencies, determinism, all these things. Jim, you mentioned reliability, serviceability, longevity even. It's hard to hear some talk about longevity. So there's this whole view of how do we make these systems operationally resilient, reliable. And what was one of the metrics? I think it was the gentleman from Google who mentioned mean time to failure was 9 days, right?
Yes. Well, and you're right. Those have been critical aspects of the communication segment forever. You had to do NEBS testing. Matter of fact, at Motorola, we did optical backplanes 18 years ago, So, I mean, we were already pushing the limit way back then. And MIPS testing, if you're not familiar with it, it's intense. And at one point, you actually have to have two systems side by side, set one on fire, and the other one has to keep running for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
It's insane. But you're right, that reliability and that mean time to failure are critical components to that. And we're starting to see that creep in to these systems. And part of it is definitely ROI, because especially the hyperscalers, the neoclouds, everyone that's buying these billion-dollar systems definitely wants to make sure, multi-million-dollar systems, wants to make sure they're going to get the most out of it, but also because they're becoming critical to other enterprise-type workloads.
Right.
And you can't afford the failures anymore. So it really is pushing the envelope of reliability.
Yeah.
I was really impressed with the announcements about a base die of HBM instead of it just simply being a passive die to transmit electrical signals. Logic in the base die, which will apparently available on HBM4, but I think it'll be HBM4E before it really matures. Yes. It involves a lot of partnership with the SoC designers to figure out, well, what do you want to offload to this? The simplest one is just to put SRAM in there, right? And then it acts like a very fast HBM with SRAM on the base die and then DRAM above that for the 3D stacking and to get the capacity. That's a simple solution to speeding up HBM dramatically.
But that's not really what they're looking at it for. They're looking at it for in-memory compute. So they're looking at putting logic there. And that kind of concerns me. I'm, especially at FMS. I have to remember the acronym here because they keep changing the name. They talked about, all the big three vendors, SK Hynix, Samsung, and Micron talked about, HBM4E and this in-memory compute and everything else. It still really worries me because nobody wants a single source solution. So who's going to be producing that logic die?
Right.
And who really becomes a memory vendor at that point in time? And in terms of assembly and everything else, because nobody wants a single source solution. So it's, I think there's a lot of things to be worked out before we get to that point.
There seems to be more than one way to skin the cat. It may not entirely just be solely a NVIDIA cat. As we start to look at inference and the different model architectures that are emerging, that there may be some, let's say, model-specific or application-specific compute architectures that may, bring about a step change improvement over, let's say, what we see with general-purpose AI supercomputing. So I don't know. I think when we talk about frontiers, there's some of these disruptive factors and vectors that are starting to emerge. But they're still really early, right? There are ideas and there are things that definitely the incumbents can embrace as well very quickly, as we've seen NVIDIA do, right?
I think D-Matrix is a good example of what you're talking about, where they're not trying to be everything to everybody, but if what you need is really fast inference, they have a system uses a combination of SRAM and DRAM, but the weights are stored in SRAM, so it's really fast, and you put together a bunch of these chips on a card, and what you have is a very fast inference process. You're not going to ever use it for training, but that's okay.
Exactly.
And that much SRAM's very impressive. And they're an interesting startup to watch. They're presenting at the AI Infra Summit in just a couple of weeks. So the audience members may want to tune into that to watch what D-Matrix is doing.
I mean, AI more than anything is it's a data issue. How do you move data? Where do you execute data? Where do you use it? And I think one of the things people are realizing is that in a lot of cases, you may want to be doing, since there's multiple stages of an AI pipeline, you may want to be doing some of that processing where the data is, rather than having to keep moving it around to different elements. Matter of fact, even using the same processor isn't necessarily going to be the most efficient way to do AI processing going forward. So you have to kind of collect the data, you have to ingest the data, you have to train the data, and then you have the inference execution of the data. And all of those have different processing requirements and they have different storage and data requirements. So that data pipeline is becoming critical. And I think that data pipeline is going to become more intelligent and become part of the, if you will, the data pipeline and the compute pipeline are merging.
This whole idea of disaggregated inference kind of stuck out for me at the conference as well. And oddly, not only the disaggregation of the compute system, but also cooling, which I thought was weird, and power. And especially as the industry is looking at how do we bring these accelerated computing systems into traditional data centers, especially, and going back to my previous mention about enterprise AI. That's something that we've seen. There was a presentation about MGX. That was the Meta presentation on rack, right? The rack tutorial. I thought those were really interesting dynamics in terms of what is happening right now to take these hybrid approaches to water cooling as well as air cooling and engineering systems that are specific to different environments outside of what is now required at the leading edge of AI model training systems, right? It's probably not entirely going to be the case that all of the generative AI workloads are going to be running off of, quote unquote, the cloud or neo clouds, right? There has to be some degree of diffusion, and you kind of got a sense of that at Hot Chips this year. Although the whole AI PC thing was missing, and that was a big thing last year, right? I mean, did you guys hear anything about AI PC?
Just the little DGX from NVIDIA.
Yeah.
Right, that's kind of an AI PC.
And that'll work.
It only runs Linux, so
yeah.
If it ever runs Windows, look out. It'd be a huge market segment for NVIDIA to enter should Microsoft decide to support it. I mean, it's ARM, so ARM and GPU. They already support ARM and GPUs, but not that particular product yet.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Yeah. So any final?
It's huge. It's like it's the size of a deck of cards. I mean, that.
Like
Jim doesn't want it. He wants a real.
No, actually I do, and I actually am on the pre-order list for it. I just think it's cool, and the fact that you can stack them, so you can have multiple ones, you can increase the performance. So you kind of daisy chain them. No, I actually think it's a great solution, and it's
good.
And the thing is it's not just a desktop; it's actually portable. I mean, it's small enough to where you can just stick it in your briefcase, stick it in your backpack, and go with it. So I actually think it's a phenomenal solution, and it really shows off. It also shows...
combine that with Meta's glasses? That would be interesting.
That would be interesting.
Primary display.
Yeah. And it shows off, I think, some of the changes we're seeing with, like Leonard alluded to, some of these partnerships are changing dynamics of the industry. This was co-developed, co-designed between... MediaTek and NVIDIA. It wasn't one company taking the other's IP. It was co-developed. So you've got MediaTek on the SoC side of the chip, and it's kind of a two-chip solution, and NVIDIA on the GPU, and some NVIDIA on the SoC side. So, really forming a tight bond to have where you have a really powerful low performance, or I should say low power, high performance solution for AI development, although you could do a lot of other stuff on it.
Yeah, a couple teraflops. I mean, there's a lot of performance to put on the desktop.
And it looks really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like a miniature DGX server.
What cracked me up when they talked about this, or they introduced it at CES, was the fact that they had it on display, and the fact tag, or just the description of it, was larger than the device.
That's crazy.
It's important to mention who goes. Right. I mean, I bumped into John Hennessy in the hallway. John Hennessy, chairman of Google.
I bumped into Pat Gelsinger.
Pat Gelsinger.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. I bumped into so many people there. And I guess that's the benefit of not just the presentations, but all the people, all the history that are there. Obviously, Kevin Krewell. My partner that retired, Nathan Brookwood, who's been around the industry forever. So, I mean, just, Tom Coughlin, just all the people. And it's always great, the conversations you have. Matter of fact, I even got information from a really old secure contact on an announcement coming up September 3rd that I can't even talk about.
Oh, wonderful.
And it's amazing because they all move around. Like Rakesh was there from NVIDIA. Well, he's done a couple startups since then. He's on another startup now. Can't wait to hear more about the details. But
Yeah, it's
John
great.
Masters was there from ARM, who now works at Google. They all move around, so you get all kinds of interesting perspectives and stories. It's the community that makes Hot Chips what it is.
It is.
And it's a massive brain dump, and there's so many interesting things, at least for me. I know you guys.
Yeah, I think I was one of the only people there without a PhD, right? And it's like,
No, I don't have a PhD. You and the both of us.
All three of us, I think you can
all
put in
three
the
of us don't have PhDs. We decide to work instead.
Yeah, but it's amazing to see the work and the research that's coming down the pike.
Yeah.
That's going to influence how these systems evolve. I mean, that's the thing. It's you attend this conference, you kind of get a blueprint for what you can expect for the next 2-3 years, right?
Yeah.
And
I think we should stop allowing people from talking about last year's products. Right? There were some that will remain nameless. They got up and talked for an hour about a product they introduced 6 months ago. It's in market.
I think they should stop allowing all the Apple people to attend if they're not going to talk about products.
They never talk. They only listen.
They're there to learn. Yeah.
That's okay. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But I'm not okay.
I'm just teasing.
Let me tell you about last year's product. Really?
Yeah.
That was boring.
Yeah, and they shall not be named.
We will not name them.
Yeah.
Well, and you have to remember that, some of the companies like Intel and AMD and NVIDIA, they had several presentations at the event. So, I mean, they're not talking about just one product or one part of the system. They're talking about multiple parts of the system. So, sometimes I agree that I don't like hearing about last year's products or a product that was already introduced, but usually these guys at least give you some information that you didn't have before, some detail you didn't have before.
Yeah.
So I still appreciate that.
Yeah. It's all good stuff. Come on, guys. We love Hot Chips, and
it's a great conference. I encourage everyone to attend.
Yeah,
Shares.
Yeah, but then that lunch line will get longer and longer, Carl.
Oh, it's long, but it moves pretty quick.
Attend virtually.
They had pretty good food in that lunch line, didn't they?
Yeah,
they did.
Indian Day. It's all Indian food.
Yeah.
Half the audience was either from India or Pakistan. So,
yeah.
The thing that cracked me up about it was, especially on the tutorial day on Sunday, NVIDIA, and the first part of the tutorials were on racks, and the second was on programming AI kernels. And NVIDIA talked about their NVL72 and everything they had to do to it to beef it up, and even said fully configured. This is the weight of a Chevy Tahoe. Yeah. It's massive. But even without that, I mean, with the structural enhancements they had to do and everything else to it, you're talking about 3,000 pounds. They actually wanted to bring one to the show to show it off, and they couldn't get it through the door. Oh, because you can't tip it. You can't tip it. No, they literally, you can't tip it sideways or anything else because it weighs so much, and it would not fit through the doors to the auditorium.
Yeah, another thing that was really interesting, I used to do a lot of research on additive manufacturing and 3D printing when I was at IBM. There's a company called Fabricate. Is it?
Fabricate?
Yeah.
Fabricate.
Cold plate presentation was really cool. Yeah, with an 8. Their whole cold plate presentation was really interesting, right? And the fact that they didn't use traditional 3D printing methods was also really interesting, and how they design cold plates that are custom designed for a particular thermal characteristic, planar thermal characteristic of a chip or a package, right? And that's where we are now, at that level of material, physical optimization and innovation.
Materials technology. It really is materials technology.
Yeah.
And the fact that they print these using copper at room temperature.
Yeah.
So it's not even like they had to heat it. So, I mean, this is, it was impressive technology. They called it, it's called ECM. ECM.
Yeah. ECM. Right. And, last year, we weren't really talking too much about cold plates. They were just generically being introduced in terms of a topic. But with all the discussions around power efficiency or, thermal management of these data centers and racks, I mean, pretty much every scale that you can imagine, it's interesting to see how these really mundane, boring things are becoming all of a sudden important factors in taking things to the next level in terms of scaling and power and performance efficiency, right? So I thought that was kind of cool. So I did attend GlobalFoundries Tech Summit just right after Hot Chips. So I know that, Jim, you couldn't make it because of the extremely short notice. This was my first time attending a GlobalFoundries event, and this is their technology summit.
Yes.
Which is held at the Marriott, right? And then, obviously, Jim, you have a long legacy with these guys, and
Yes.
And so you asked me, what are some of the things that kind of popped? They were during the presentations or through the course of the whole day, and it's a one-day event. They really wanted to flex their silicon photonics muscles, so that was a really big topic. They even took it to the quantum level, so quantum photonics. And so they were talking about quantum dots and a bunch of physics stuff that I was not able to digest, or may never ever be able to digest, that was being presented by Ted, doctor, by the way, Ted Ledovich, who's the corporate, I think he's a corporate fellow. He's a SVP at GlobalFoundries, who presented the whole roadmap, right? The technological roadmap. And, for those of you who don't know, GlobalFoundries is more, where Intel, TSMC, Samsung, they're more of the, fabs that are in the headlines for their leading edge process technologies. GlobalFoundries, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, they're more of the lagging edge stuff. But when you start to talk to them, you hear a lot about like IoT-ish type of stuff, power, RF, these foundational things that support all these digital systems that are enabling our digital lives, right? And as well as these hyperscale AI data centers. So power is like a key area. The other thing is CMOS, ultra low power, as well as feature rich. And as I mentioned before, silicon photonics. And these are now like actually becoming an important domain because of a lot of the stuff that we mentioned at Hot Chips, where now the conversation is shifting toward resilience, reliability, serviceability, and all these concepts actually require, guess what? IoT, right? Sensors, being able to capture telemetry, having power efficient XYZ across the board to drive the sustainability of systems at almost every scale, from the edge sensor all the way to these hyperscale AI supercomputing systems. It was interesting for me. It was actually kind of refreshing, Jim.
Well, I wouldn't classify them as a laggard. I'd say that they are leading.
I didn't say they're a laggard.
Did I say they were laggard? Yes.
No,
they are a leading. They are a leading semiconductor foundry company. However, they are typically the N+1 or N+. They're not on the bleeding edge of technology.
Yeah.
But they also have a lot of specialty. So they focus more on not just being on the leading edge, but having the specialty technology for wireless, for optical, for all these different types of applications. And they've got so much capacity, between Singapore and the US. And so, I mean, they're kind of a key, I would say that they're kind of the key foundry for the other 95% of the semiconductors we need to make devices.
Yeah. Did you say 95%?
Yes. In terms of units,
Speaking of
absolutely.
foundries,
One of the things that I came off pretty impressed with was their advanced packaging, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they do a lot of advanced packaging. They were touting their chops in 3D heterogeneous integration, a lot of talk about homogeneous and heterogeneous integration. I have this thing called Slate. It's an advanced packaging platform where you can do like wafer to wafer homogeneous bonding, as well as wafer to wafer, RF stuff, die to wafer. So, for the classes of devices that they support from a manufacturing perspective, they're very advanced and investing tremendously in advanced packaging, which is obviously becoming a big thing up and down the stack, right? I mean, advanced packaging is that thing that is enabling the industry to continue to advanced semiconductor systems and architectures. So I thought that was a cool learning for me. They also emphasized RRAM, resistor RAM, for a lot of the IoT applications that they support. And Jim, I don't know if you can share some details on what that is. That's what do you call it? It's a form of embedded non-volatile memory, right?
Exactly. It's embedded non-volatile memory, and it's one of several that have been focused around creating kind of the perfect memory. Mm-hmm. The challenge has always been volume or scalability, especially when you only have one company doing one version of it. It is a very viable solution, especially as we run into challenges in scaling other memory options. I think everyone's looking at how memory is going to change going forward. And GlobalFoundries is unique in the fact that it has a lot of those pieces of the puzzle. It even acquired MIPS. So now it has, some IP. And I think, you mentioned this early on, changes in the dynamics of the industry or the structure of the industry. I don't think we'll ever see a pure play IP company again, like we saw with ARM or MIPS. I think those companies need to be part of a bigger entity. And I think everyone's trying to figure out how to put all these different pieces of the puzzle together, from EDA to semiconductor design to actually manufacturing, to all these pieces, and make it effectively, cost effective.
Yeah. So a certain degree of vertical integration, not full vertical integration, but sort of vertical consolidation to unleash a bit more value and differentiation. And that's what I gleaned out of my conversations with the folks at MIPS, is that is sort of the thinking around that play, right? Is that we can, by having IP as part of our portfolio, we can help our customers go to market quicker, also providing them with integrated tooling to do that. So there's like a whole range of accelerators consolidating, integrating tooling to make that happen. So it's all, it's like pre-integrating stuff and then validating it and certifying it so that, you don't have to do all these integrations separately. Being able to scale those integrations out. I think that's really the gist of the story from what I can tell.
Obviously we've seen GlobalFoundries morph over time. I mean, they were spun out originally from AMD as a pure play foundry. They acquired additional assets from IBM, and in terms of packaging and everything else. Now acquiring MIPS. I think they continue to evolve their business model, and I think that's good because I think business models have to change. I think especially in the AI era, every company should be asking themselves today, how does AI and the changes around AI not only change your company and what your company does, but also change your business model? Yeah.
When it comes to AI, these guys definitely have threaded a lot of AI into their storytelling. Like for their feature-rich CMOS, it's basically a perception AI story, physical AI, right? They framed it as physical AI with sensing, compute, and then they also do like display stuff, which I didn't know about. That was interesting for me. Cool company. They're sort of at the epicenter of emerging edge AI, or even existing edge AI and quote unquote IoT. And the next frontier, which is sensory or the perception end of physical AI. Good stuff. Anyways, I enjoyed it. Hopefully I'll join them next year. We'll all be there. I don't know if Karl wants to be there, but I'm sure we can get you an invitation, Karl. This is going to be important because all these large data centers, they're going to have to be instrumented, right? It can't just be about the core compute. The entire data center has to be a AI. You don't think so?
Oh yeah, I do. Absolutely. One of the things we forgot to mention about hot chips, to go back for just a moment, was Rapidus CEO came over from Japan and presented a fascinating, albeit slow, presentation about the Rapidus factory. So as you don't know, Rapidus is a Japanese government-sponsored fabrication facility coming up in Japan. Its first products will be 2 nanometer, right? So they're not sitting back waiting for technology to get to them. They're going after it, and this thing is gorgeous.
Well, they formed a key partnership also with IBM, so they're leveraging IBM's latest technology.
Right, that was announced 2 years ago. Yep.
Yeah.
We ought to post some pictures of that.
The facility is awesome.
Yeah.
The facility is amazing. They say in the winter you can ski down it. Yeah.
I'm open. Let's go.
I'm open. We're going.
Yeah. We're going to try to get an invitation. Winter invitation to visit the fab and do a tour. Yeah, that'd be great. Crazy month. Do you think that next month is going to be any more or less crazy?
No.
What kind of crazy stuff do you guys have on your?
I'm going from here to meetings with ARM on their next generation products, to IFA, which is kind of Europe's version of CES, to IA Mobility to see the latest in personal mobile tech. And it just keeps going on and on from there. So no, it's there was absolutely no break, I think, this year, summer break, and it just keeps flowing. And the fall, like usual, is going to be crazy. I think I'm traveling for the next 12 weeks.
Oh. What about you, Karl?
Not traveling for the next 12 weeks, but I will be going to the AI Infrastructure Summit and the Snapdragon Summit for Qualcomm.
We'll all be there.
We'll all be there. Yep. And
and then we have supercomputing coming up and other things. Yes.
So you guys are going to be there as well?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I have OCP and Semicon West.
I'll be at OCP, and there's some other company events that week, and then one of my colleagues, Damien, will be at Semicon West.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So everyone, just reach out to us if you're at any of these events. We'd love to meet you and chat. And so I think we'll call that an episode. And so definitely reach out to these gentlemen. They're leaders in their field. Karl Freund just started his Substack, so make sure to go and check out his Substack. But he's on Forbes for the time being, I think.
I'll stay on Forbes for some stuff, but some of the stuff I write about is just not really the right content for that audience. So
yeah, but if you want like the latest, greatest insights on AI and AI supercomputing and HPC, definitely contact Karl. Follow him on Substack. His website is www.cambrian-ai.com. And also follow him on LinkedIn. And of course, Jim is everywhere. Are you on Substack yet?
Not yet. No, not on Substack. On E-Times, E-Journal, ECT News. We're and a couple of other publications, not just myself, but my colleagues. Yeah. So we are kind of across the board for electronics and for some of the general business stuff.
Yeah, and he just knows everything. You know, Jim is a legend.
I wish.
Yeah.
You're calling me old again.
Yeah, you are old. Embrace it.
No, I'm old.
You guys are all young at heart. That's all that counts. Remember to like, share, and comment on this episode, and subscribe to the Rethink podcast here on YouTube and Buzzsprout. Also, please subscribe to the Next Curve research portal at www.next-curve.com. We have a Substack as well. I'm trying to promote that because LinkedIn is getting really weird. Subscribe for the tech and industry insights that matter, and we'll see you next time. And hopefully, please don't be such a crazy month, the month of September. So anyways, gentlemen, thank you.